Welcome to the fifth and final episode of our Quantum Revolution education series. And this is where I wanted to give an example of what this revolution looks like inside a classroom. Okay, what does quantum education actually mean in this sense? And keep in mind that, the last episode, we really defined what a quantum mechanical student looks like. And it's that idea that we're individuals, we're unique blends and mixtures of emotional and intellectual states, okay, our so-called wave functions that we have. Now, with the whole premise, from the beginning of this series, we've been saying that in order to act differently in something like a classroom, perhaps, we have to be thinking differently. Thinking this way, as far as having students be these unique blends, it forces us to be thinking and placing emotional and health concerns on the same level as academics. This whole foundation of social emotional learning that so many schools are talking about, but maybe aren't quite implementing the right way or understanding how to do this. This forces us to think in terms of variety of lessons. We can't be doing the same thing every day and every year, because if students are identical, then yeah, that would work. But because students really are not identical and they have different strengths and weaknesses and different emotional states, of course, the same types of lessons aren't going to have the same effects on every single student. We have to let everyone have some sense of interest and success if we want to hit every student and make sure every student gets something from our classes. So variety has to be part of this. Choice and independence allow students every so often, you don't have to do this every day, but give them little tidbits, opportunities to look at things of personal interest, have some choice in this. Now, one way that I do this, and I've done it for some years after they've come out, is I wanted to address what I call the UNSG Project. Now, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is what SDG stands for, were developed back in 2015. And it's been catching on with some teachers around the world, but it's still not out there to a great extent. Very few teachers here, for example, have probably even heard of these. But these are 17 different goals, 17 different problems, issues that affect the human race, that affect all countries. And these are the 17 here. Regardless of what class I have, even AP classes, which does have that Newtonian structure, right? It's the whole goal of AP classes is to get to that standardized test at the end. It's a standardized curriculum. I'm okay with taking some time from an AP class and doing this, okay? Allow students to pick and choose, for example, which one of these 17 they're most interested in. Allow them to do something about it. So I have one of our little sayings is we want to teach and put some pep in our learning steps, where PEP stands for trying to learn with purpose, empathy, and perspective. Okay, real world problems, all of which will have some amount of science. Being a science teacher, I look at the science side of all of these issues. And let the kids go crazy with this. Let them go and pick the one that they're most interested in. They can do it as an individual or with a small team. They need to be able to measure an impact. They have to think of something to do to address that particular problem. And it can be on a local, national, or even global scale. We have global connections in my classes. That might not be for everybody, but you get the gist. And then do something. Do an actual actionable project. And then identify where the science comes in for our cases. Now, if you teach other disciplines, other subject areas, you can tailor this to fit your needs and to make it relevant within your classes. You can do something like this. And it's been wonderful. We've had students do literally hundreds of different things. And I wanted to sneak this in here too. Somebody like Martin Luther King Jr., he understood the quantum mindset. he knew that real education is not just the academic side, but it's the character. It's that social emotional side that we largely have been ignoring for many years. That's why we have so many mental health issues with our students around the country and around the world, really. Um, but Martin Luther King, he did things that were never done before because he had this other kind of mindset. He understood um, what works better than what we had been doing for many, many years. This kind of gives you a sense that when you allow this kind of independence and choice, students, we selected almost all of them. The only one that nobody had really focused on was the peace and justice one, and that tends to be something that's outside of our realm within high schools. But it's been wonderful to provide this choice. And then again, for my case, in my science classes, they would have to focus and give, in their presentations to the rest of the class where the science comes in to developing real solutions for these problems. And my high school students have done all sorts of things. On a global scale, we've been helping and working with classes in Sierra Leone and other African countries, in Malawi with a way of schools, a model for schools to actually grow their own crops and avoid famines that they've had in the past, and make sure kids are fed throughout the entire school year. That's become a national model in Malawi now because of the work that a lot of my students have been involved in over the last couple of years. Students love social media. A lot of the projects revolve around that. We've had hundreds of thousands of views on different websites and videos that people have made and put on their social media platforms on all sorts of different topics and issues. We've had all sorts of tutoring going on. We've had tens of thousands of gallons of water saved where people wanted to focus on that. Students have written petitions and letters to leaders everywhere from the local to the national levels, fundraising for different efforts. We're getting involved in tower gardens and trying to get fresh produce into things like food deserts within cities and in low-income homes, and on and on and on and on. So this is possible to do in any kind of classroom at any level. This is what we're calling the quantum mindset. Getting away from that assembly line, one size fits all education, into giving some choice, and understanding and accepting the fact that our students are individuals and they all are different and have different blends of talents and interests and emotional states. We can do this. We can do this sort of thing. Now, in my TED Talk, a different example is given, something we call Project Excite, which addressed and had real results and effectiveness on something like the achievement gaps between white students and students of color. So watch my TED Talk when that comes out, so you can see that example. And I'll be writing this up in a variety of different ways in much more detail to give more examples of what this can look like. So if you're interested in this, be looking for it, contact me at any point. This is for our kids. This is for their education and for their futures. We can and must do better than what we've been doing since the age of No Child Left Behind, some over 20 years ago. And this, I think, having this mindset will allow us to do different things in the classroom, work with individual students, and really start making a difference for every student. So I hope this has been useful for you, and let's get to work with this. Thank you.